That the Niners missed everyone on defense on Sunday, so that may have played a role in Marcus Mariota lighting up the San Francisco defense. But also Kyle Pitts got in the end zone, so I don't care just how depleted the Niners were. Kyle Pitts got in the end zone, so I appreciate you guys helping in that regard because I was losing it. So
I gotta say, so normally when we talk about the 49ers, right? Like I go through my entire, this is what I saw, things like that. This is rare though, because your team played my team. So let's set the stage, right? The 49ers went in Sunday with being the most injured team in the NFL. And I think within the first 13 seconds, they already had 3 of their starters all on defense left the game. So setting the stage, what did you see watching the 49ers, which are my team, as not a fan, like watching that team play? What did you see? And then what was it that worked so well with Atlanta?
I mean, Darren Hall played out of his mind, so I think they might have a guy there. The secondary got banged up a little bit, but Darren Hall looks like he's going to be a player. Ebiketie was awesome on the edge, and he's looking like a really good player. So a lot of the young guys popped for the Falcons in this one. I thought that was really illustrative of where Falcons are going. I mean, the offensive line played really well going into this game.
Your O-line looked really good. I don't know if that's a testament to your O-line or San Francisco not having anybody on the line.
I think it could both be
pressure on Mariota whatsoever.
And that's like the one area where it's like you give Mariota time. He's gonna figure some, like Mariota, having watched him every week now, it's really weird. He has the dumb fumbles and he's still someone that we'll never feel confident with, but he takes charge. He takes chances that I didn't think he would take. And that's why I thought I'd be more frustrated with him to this point where I'm like, he's not going to do enough for Drake London. He's not going to do enough for Kyle Pitts. He's not going to do enough for player X. No, he takes shots. The offense is moving. The offense is humming. Like, it's really been, I mean, I would still at a certain point want to see what we have in Ritter sooner rather than later, so we don't go into the offseason just wondering what the quarterback situation looks like next year. But I don't know. I think the offensive line, has been the biggest surprise for the Falcons all season long. And like I said, I was joking about Arthur Smith, but like, there's something to what he is building here, because you came into the year. I mean, I know PFF had the Falcons at the number 32 offensive line coming into the 2022 season. And
32.
Yeah, I mean, they're playing above their heads. Jalen Mayfield not being in the lineup and not being a factor at left guard helps, but like, doesn't matter if it's Elijah Wilkinson. Drew Dahlman has been much better than Matt Hennessy at center. Lindstrom's been great. You have McGarry, who's been fine. Elijah Wilkinson at the left guard spot's been good. But like, you look at Jake Matthews, just solid. Like, they're just solid everywhere. It's kind of like the Tennessee offensive line, where you don't look at a lot outside of Darnell Wright. I mean, not a lot of future NFL names. It's not like a couple years ago where we had only 5 stars on the offensive line. I mean, Gerald Mincey and J.J. Crawford are out here starting at left tackle and being asked to keep Will Anderson from Nooker. And you're like, I don't really understand how this is working. I don't understand why he only got sacked once in the Alabama game, but I'll take it. That's the same. I mean, that's my takeaway. Did y'all have a different one?
I want, first off, I don't mean to cut you. How does Evan feel? Because I don't know how you feel. Even I root for Vols that go into the league if they're not on the Niners. Obviously, somebody like Juwan Jennings or Emmanuel Mosley. How was that for you, Evan, being an Oregon guy? Like, you want to see Mariota do well, but not at the 49ers expense, right?
So, I mean, Mariota's been in the NFL for so long at this point, and he's had like obviously a lot more downs than ups. And even to just be where he is now, like a lot of that Oregon nostalgia was gone, right? Oh. Because, you have to remember, my best friend since 4th grade was a Titans fan, right? So I remember following him and having that in Tennessee. Then he went to Oakland, which was really like a 2-year disappearing act. Like, it's like he was gone for 2 years, And so like by the time, when the game came around, like I didn't really have any of that. In fact, I think I might have been had things been more normal. But like, as a 49ers fan, you start the game and players immediately start getting injured. And it was like, I couldn't even like mentally appreciate, oh, this is Marcus playing. It just goes straight into, wait, who's out? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Right. Like, so it's just like, it was like jarring immediately.
Yeah.
And then derailed throughout the entire process.
It's an ugly one. But kudos to the Falcons, man. They did what they had to do.
I mean, shut out the Niners in the second half. Did you see anything the Falcons did specifically, Evan, in the second half that frustrated you and something that
No,
other
no,
teams can
not at
do?
all. Not at
Okay.
all. Because so here's the thing, and I think this is kind of the thing I'm excited to have Clay or another 49ers fan in general talk about. Kyle Shanahan, I think, I don't know what the exact stat is. Clayton, you might remember, but Kyle Shanahan has like a 0-24 record going into the fourth quarter,
down by multiple scores, something like that.
Down by multiple scores.
Yeah.
Not only that, but he's scored like 6 points or something in the second half, or 9 points in the second half this year. Like, there's so much going on right now, and it's like you want to go kind of into panic mode, but you remember what happened last year, and the 49ers went like 3-5 and then ended up going to the NFC Championship. So it's hard to balance it. But what I will say is the overall theme that I saw watching the Falcons game was actually really positive. I have been beating the drum for George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk to get the ball more, for less, Deebo Samuel rushes and more Deebo Samuel touches, from a reception standpoint. And I got to see that. Yes, Sunday.
You got the Ayuk Samuel experience, 21 targets combined.
Yeah, Brandon Ayuk, 80 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had a pass that was called back for was it like holding or something like that?
It was not Brunskill, the other one, Jake Brendel.
Yeah.
He had such a bad game, and I'm like, costly penalties that were just complete drive killers.
Yeah.
Going back to that Ayuk pass you were referring to.
Yeah, and so it's like he would have been over 100 yards.
Yeah.
He had an incredible game. I would more so want to hear what Clayton has to say, but my overall feeling was, again, for another, like the third game in this year, the 49ers beat themselves. They did not, the Falcons didn't beat them, to me, right? Like, it's no knock on the Falcons because they played impressive football in certain aspects, but they had a drop by Charlie Warner, who's like the second or third string tight end, who they only literally brought in, and we I don't want to dive further, but I was having this conversation today and we were talking about the Falcons, why is Kyle Shanahan throwing the ball to your third or fourth string receiver like Ray McLeod, who was the one that dropped the basically in the hands pass, or Charlie Warner, the backup tight end?
You and I have the same exact mindset. Like, those plays should be designed to – you brought in Danny Gray for that specific reason, to take defenses over the top. Like, if you're not going to use Danny Gray – I mean, it's nothing against Ray McLeod, but, why was that play – not drawn up for George Kittle, the drop Charlie Warner pass?
Right.
That should have been drawn up for George Kittle. Why was the Ray McLeod not drawn up for Ayuk or maybe Jennings, who's not necessarily a speedster, but Danny Gray? Gray, amazing.
Hands. And that's my point. And if you look back to everyone always, when they talk about Kyle Shanahan, want to talk about the 2016 Falcons. Oh my God, look at God.
I don't want to talk about the 2016.
But you know what I mean? They're look at God King Kyle Shanahan and what he was able to do with that offense. But if you look at that offense, who was your third string tight end? Was it Toy Lolo?
Oh yeah, Toyo Lolo. Yeah, no, he is.
And then who was the other guy?
Many people are saying he could be the heir to Tony Gonzalez.
Yeah. No, but hold on. But Jacob Tammy too, right?
Yes.
They averaged 1 to 1.8 targets a game that year, right? But yet some of the most pivotal plays against this Falcons team today, Sunday, and Ray McLeod is a fourth string running back, and he was quite literally only signed because we had such poor kickoff return and punt returns last year. He was signed to be a special teams player, but he's getting key plays and he drops the ball. You've got Brandon Ayuk, you've got Deebo Samuel, you've got George Kittle, and you're throwing it to Ray McLeod. There's a Charlie Warner over the middle pass. It's the one thing that you can guarantee George Kittle's good at, and he couldn't have been a better pass. And we've been begging Jimmy Garoppolo all year to be able to throw deep. And instead, we finally get these passes and he does a good job, and they're not catching it. And they're going to players that shouldn't be getting the ball. Am I missing something, Clayton? What were your thoughts?
Chase will probably agree with me. That outcome outside of San Francisco's injuries, I was still on cloud 9 from the night before with Tennessee. I'll tell you the one thing that I didn't envision. So at this point in the year, if San Francisco's first 6 games, I said at very worst, they should be 4-2.
Mm.
And their 2 losses that I thought going into the season weren't from anyone that they lost to, with the exception of the Broncos, who are just bad. Another game that they should have won. I'm not stressing out about this loss too much because, like you said, all the injuries are just bad. But I feel like my takeaway is, outside of going away from running the ball, costly holding penalties, drive-killing drops, I feel like Kyle Shanahan, for some reason, lacks creativity in the second half or late in third quarter, fourth quarter situations. The play calling almost gets predictable. I feel like he does too much. He doesn't keep it simple. I feel like he tries to outthink the other coach when you see that the throwing was working earlier in the game. Obviously, if Jeff Wilson doesn't fumble the ball and those receivers don't drop those passes and the holding doesn't called on that big completion Ayuk, the game's a little bit different. But to put up 0 points in the second half against the Atlanta Falcons, nothing against the Falcons, it's a little worrisome, but I'm not hitting the panic button.
Yeah.
Can you explain the running back stuff to me? Like, as someone who owns a fantasy 49ers in my bench, in my fantasy football lineup with my wife, Jeff Wilson, his snaps are going down each and every week. I don't know if that's partly because they were just down early against the Falcons, so he's not really a receiving threat. You have Tevin Coleman, who people are like, oh, and Evan, you were just talking about it last week, where you're like, oh God, Tevin Coleman's now just about to be the lead guy. And then you obviously have Tyrion Davis-Price, who's coming back, and then you're going to get Elijah Mitchell back at some point. Like, what's going on with the running back situation?
So the thing that is so frustrating to me is when Elijah Mitchell got hurt, especially when they signed Tevin Coleman, and in my head, the first thing I tweeted was like, I swear to God, if Tevin Coleman gets snaps over Jordan Mason, who is the undrafted free agent, that literally is the reason why Trey Sermon got cut, because he played so well in practice. He played so well in the offseason, training camp, all these things. Because of that, they felt comfortable getting rid of a player that they drafted last year with a premium pick. And here they are not playing him, right? He's had 1 carry in the last 3 games or something like that. You have Tevin Coleman, who arguably, once again, Tevin Coleman came in and he played very well and he looked good and he was really played a lot better than I thought. But like then he, came back down because he's no longer playing the Panthers, and he played exactly how I'd expect him to. He's at the end of his career. He's not effective. He can't he can't move the chains. And you have Tyrion Davis-Price, who was coming off an injury. I don't understand coaches in general, and Harbaugh did this before too, that have this like enamoration for the older, more mature vet players. Like every 49ers fan right now is like, well, Jordan Mason might not be able to block. It's like, what, do they not teach blocking in college? Like, do you think, is that like something that you like high school, college, you never learn? And then the NFL, like, well, it's time to learn how to block. Like, I don't understand how the idea of how Tevin Coleman coming off the street, not having played, not having had a training camp, was better suited to run the ball than Jordan Mason, who has quite literally been nothing but fantastic all throughout training camp and that. So other than that, though, Jeff Wilson and Tevin Coleman are Jags, just another guys. That's what they should be.
Yeah.
Well, going forward, it's gut check time for the Niners. They're not favored right now in their next 2 games. And you said last year, NFC title game at 3-5. They're staring right at that potentially, because the next 3 weeks are huge for the Niners. You get KC, not great. You don't want KC following what they just went through this past week, and then you have at Rams. We'll see what the Rams are looking like. We'll get to the Rams, because I just think are really bad. But also they're not favored there, and then you get the Chargers on prime time too. So I don't know.
Here's what I'm curious. By the way, in case anyone's unaware, Clayton is essentially, he's the senior assignment editor at the NFL Network, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I want to ask